And now, Dark, you have a certain series that you want to
Oh
cover.
boy.
Is,
Oh
isn't that
boy, I
correct?
do. Yeah, I have Spice and Wolf 2024. Woo.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
The
show is
bomb evergreen.
old. This show is
Yeah,
I
old.
and
know, I
nobody
know. It's so
knows what the series is
old.
about. This is like, in the meme, it's like the prehistoric or the legend anime or whatever it is. It's that. It's the prehistoric anime.
Yeah, I like how, since there is the original on Mall, when you're on the 2024 page, you get to see all the original like character designs, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
damn,
yeah,
we
yeah,
live
Yeah,
yeah,
like
because they
yeah.
don't
this.
update the voice actor
Yeah,
credit
exactly.
portraits and
Yeah.
stuff.
Like, god damn. Um, but yeah, so this is Spice and Wolf. This is obviously a remake. This is being done by Passione.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and just as a synopsis, obviously it's about a merchant named Lawrence Kraft who one day, while trading furs and passing through a village that is currently harvesting its wheat for its annual festival, he finds that there is a sleeping nude girl in his cart. And it turns
Oh
out
no.
to be Hollow,
Fuck.
the wolf spirit, the wolf goddess of the village. Um, but yeah, since the village kind of doesn't really want her, doesn't really need her anymore, she's decided to journey back to her homeland with Lawrence. So,
Mhm.
or well, with Lawrence, I guess, helping her travel there. And so yeah, hijinks kind of ensues. It's just about their travels together while they head north. Obviously, since Lawrence is a merchant, while he travels, they get into a lot of sticky situations with people either setting him up or them trying to take advantage of like buyers essentially.
Hmm.
And yeah, so this also takes place in a sort of medieval type time in a pseudo. I don't even think this is technically in a real country, is it? It's just kind of
Yeah,
like
No,
it's
it's
loosely.
pseudo
like
medieval.
yeah,
It's
it's like a
pseudo
made up
medieval.
European
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the
area.
usual, like, again, like the fantasy, not even fantasy, but it's like medieval feudal setting.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if they particularly do they. I know they do talk about like since the church is kind of another big sort of antagonistic force in this essentially,
Hmm.
and they operate as like the actual Catholic Church essentially.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering. I forget if they ever mention like Catholicism at all. Even I don't even know if they do that.
I think it's so the way it
I
is,
think it's
it's
just
like,
church. It's just the broad concept of
yeah,
here is
in
a church, and
general,
they have
it's
one God.
implied that they have very similar structurings and not like they don't obviously have like denominations or anything like that, but it's like it's very obvious that like a lot of those like evocations or imagery is inspired by um previous, historical imagery of the Catholic Church, of the Roman Catholic Church, stuff like that. And
Yeah,
to a later extent, not even Protestant, it's mostly Roman Catholic. And I
yeah,
would say
because like
probably
they make
a somewhat
no
Anglican, but yeah.
yeah
But
they
beyond
they
that,
make
it's
no
kind of
real
whatever.
mention of like as far as I
Yeah.
know of like
It's the usual like
Jesus or like
religion. Oh,
scriptures or anything.
fucking yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
like oh, these fucking stiff old, musty old priests that always are trying to do stupid stuff. It's that.
yeah. It
Yeah.
it very much also ties in the classic like the sort of like whether you want to call it corruption or not, but the power and influence of the church, especially amongst like merchants and trade, you know. Um, and yeah, you can debate amongst yourself if you believe that to be corruption or not. Um, but yeah, obviously, this is a classic. This is great. I think as a remake so far, it has been very good. I think it is going to roughly cover. I think it's going to go past what the original had gotten up to, if I'm not mistaken, from the pacing. I haven't gone back obviously and watched the original again to really like figure out
I
like,
mean,
oh,
this
will
is.
this pass it? But I think it will because they've
Do you mean the
already
first
met.
season or?
I think in this in general, it might get past what it got to overall, right? Because they've already met Nora, and we're only on episode 8, and this is getting 25 episodes in this season.
Yeah, but I
So
mean, the Nora stuff is resolved relatively soon, right?
yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, don't they? I feel like it. I don't know. I feel like it's gonna get past that, get past what the original got to, because the original got up to fuck. What town was it? I forget what town it was, but it was the class. It was it was the meme where it fucking ends with the bell ring, the bell ringing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it may get past that, um, depending on how fast they keep moving. But yeah, overall, it's also like kind of been pretty straight remake, but yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say much else about it, just because it is so much of the same but shinier. I will say personally, like audio visuals, I think the visuals are nice. I think they're very good at times, but I also do think that there are some very weird frames, very weird cuts that I think maybe might get polished up in like a BD.
I mean,
And I hope do.
it's not unusual.
Yeah, so that is something. It's certainly you go back, if you look at the original, you're kind of like, wow, damn. Imagine your show not being 90% like gray.
Gray.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna s-
Wowie.
I'm gonna say hot take. I think the original was fucking ugly. I think it did not look good. It did not really like it. The animation was like it was serviceable for the time, but it was not really all that great. Um, I think a lot of people I think a lot of people got really used to the very gray, like digipaint color palette of the era, but like it really kind of doesn't suit Spice and Wolf at all. Um, but I mean, at the time, that was like all we really had, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of ingrained in
Um,
a lot of people's brain of like just like how the series ought to look. But
yeah, I mean,
you
I
know,
feel like this captures kind of how you would remember it looking, and then you look back at it and you're like, oh.
compared to the light novel art, for sure. Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's like if you haven't gone back and like seen the fucking original in a very long time and you just pick this up, you're like, wow, yeah, this is how I remember. And then you look back and you're like,
yeah, and then you look back and you're like, what the fuck? This looked like shit.
yeah,
Um,
you're like, this
Wait,
is
I forgot. The
not.
last one was made by not Dean. Who was it made by?
you mean the season 1 or season 2? Because I think season 2 was
Yeah,
done
I
by
think
a
it had two
different.
different.
Yeah,
It was,
season 2 was passed off like a much smaller studio, I think. Well,
but
or
season 1
what?
was Imagine, right? And then
Imagine, I forgot. Yeah.
season
Uh,
2 was Brainspace.
oh wait, never mind. Okay, so I had it wrong. Okay, so it was Brainspace that they passed it off. But I mean, Brainspace was also smaller at that point, in
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
But yeah, I think they didn't have a lot of money and they were kind of just chucking around a little bit. But for sure, I think uh, the designs even were not. Again,
They
it
weren't even
worked in
close.
the older times,
They weren't even
but
like
yeah, they not.
fucking
Yeah, they were not
remotely
faithful
close to
to
the
the light
other
novel.
ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, to be fair, a lot of people back then were like, light novel? What the fuck is that?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
It's
Yeah.
books? Like what the
yeah.
yeah. But yeah. I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
also a big
even thinking of
difference.
like
Yeah.
railgun, like rail decks. If you look at rail
Oh
deck stuff,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
manga is completely different from the light novel, which is completely different from the fucking like
And
anime.
also, I think a big thing before back then, and you can also see it in a lot of these sorts of like rom com, harem kind of series that developed from the light novel originals as well, is that back then there was a lot less like trepidation and like focus on adapting the source material faithfully, which kind of sounds stupid because you're like, well, of course you have to adapt it faithfully. Like, what are you talking about?
Not
Kind of
back
thing.
then, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
You had
Like,
anime original characters, you had anime original endings,
yeah,
you had
yeah.
fucking anime
Remember,
original
remember,
arcs. Like
remember when
fuck, bro.
localizers were literally we had tweets of like the recent interviews 1 or 2 months back about the localizers literally going like, yeah, back then when we were localizing games we would just say any like put any
Yep.
random thing on
We
the text
just
and just
fucking
laugh
make shit
about it.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there were legitimate I wouldn't say conflicts, but there were legitimate philosophies of directors and stuff like that about how quote unquote faithful that they wanted to be to the original material. And obviously some of that still goes on today, but for the most part the scale the needle has turned way to the point of again adapting it faithfully because probably both from the pressures from the authors slash writers slash
Yeah, I think
illustrators.
nowadays the author
Yeah,
has a lot more say in like
yeah,
how their work is
has become more
adapted.
of a brand, yeah, as well.
Yeah, I think back
And
then it was kind of like you should be fucking grateful that your series
yeah,
is
yeah,
getting
we're
an
not
anime.
like
And
you
it's
should
like,
be grateful that we're not grinding you up into sawdust and feeding you
yeah,
to our illustrators, kind of thing. But I think there's also probably more and more pressure from the viewers, the readers of these web novels and light novels and manga adaptations too, which are becoming bigger and bigger, especially as digitalization goes on, right? Um, and these viewers are like, what the hell? Like, why are you not drawing it like we're seeing in all these light novel covers, right? And a lot of people also buy it because of the light novel covers.
yeah.
So yeah. So I think that sort of change is gone. Um I think also on a similar extent, sorry for kind of not this is not really gonna be like a tangent, but going back to like the slight differences between the old and the new Spice and Wolf, I think there's also a um more of a focus, and this is very obviously conscious. There's a more of a focus on making sure that more of the screen time is spent on showing Craft and Hollow's relationship with each other, right? And
Yeah.
those sorts of like cuddly scenes, and less of the yeah, economics is trading kind of scenes. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think
Yeah.
that's very obvious in this new one.
Yeah. I think Passione and director is a bit more aware of
Yeah, yeah.
the
What the author, what
following.
the viewers want, yeah.
Yeah, the following that Spice Wolf has.
Yeah, yeah.
Why people, because to be honest, most people are watching Spice Wolf because of Hollow, right?
Yeah, they're not
Um,
like
Yeah.
this is not like the wise merchant and the other merchant.
yeah,
Like this
like
is
most people aren't reading like, whoa, economics in
Yeah,
medieval
dude, like
made up Europe? I'm in. They're like,
once
they're like,
Lawrence starts going off about the silver trainee fucking coins
like
and the different types of silver coins, and my eyes glaze over, and I'm just like, all right,
yeah.
yeah,
listen,
And it's
yeah.
like, all right, can you show another cut of Hollow stimming, please? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
please,
exactly.
like
thank you. Yeah, most
like
people are
listen,
like,
man,
wow,
if I'm not seeing Hollow like
cute,
eating
cute
food in
fox
another
girl, right?
second,
So,
like I'm gonna lose my
Yeah.
mind.
I better
She's a
see those
wolf,
potatoes
you
getting eaten.
stupid.
Yeah.
yeah, whatever, dude. She's got a
But
tail
yeah.
like a
Um,
fox, so
whatever, okay, buddy. She turns into a sheep.
But yeah, I think so that and also I think this is more of like a cuter thing, but I think in the previous Spice and Wolf, we had Fukuyama Jun and Koshimizu Ami both try relatively hard to sound like a little bit more mature and older. But now it's kind of like Koshimizu Ami is very obviously trying to sound a lot younger.
yeah,
And Fukuyama Jun like is putting a little bit of like gristle in his voice because obviously it's like Florence, that's like the whole like body kind of type. But he's also trying to sound a little bit younger, I think.
yeah,
Yeah. Passing of time.
But yeah,
But
so I think other than that, another big standout part probably be, I mean, is definitely the music, because it
mhm.
is Kevin Penkin,
Uh-huh.
um, and it's quite really good. But I will say, I think that's also my biggest complaint of the series because I think the audio mixing in a lot of scenes is actually kind of ass. Um,
Mm.
I think they got really too in their head of like, yo, listen, we have fucking. Am I saying it? Is it Kevin? Yeah, it's Kevin Penkin, right?
Yeah.
Penkin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I keep saying sometimes I fucking say Perkin, and it's like a basketball player, but um, so like I think they kind of got in their head where they're like, yo, we gotta make sure people like hear this shit, and it gets like way too fucking loud, and there'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like
yeah.
a like chorus like ish part to it, where like fucking I forget what I think it was like in episode like 2 or 3 or something, and Hollow's like just literally like laying in bed doing like nothing, and they're just having a conversation, and there's just like this chorus like wailing like
Blasting.
just going
Yeah.
off like while
Yeah.
she's
I
just laying
think
there. I'm like, all right, you need to relax. Like
I think
this
they
shit
were
is
like
just way
yeah, I
lower.
think they were like, wow, we have Kevin Penkin. Like he did so like you know, like Kevin Penkin's soundtrack elevated the Made in Abyss anime like to pretty much another level, right? But the
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
Yeah,
is, those shots where the soundtrack in Made in Abyss swell are scenery, right?
massive
They're like
wide
they're
shots
panning,
like
yeah, they're
huge.
panning shots of
Yeah.
the landscape and the sort of strange architecture of the abyss, and
Mhm.
the alien nature of the creatures and stuff like that. They
Yep,
weren't
yep.
when characters were talking to each other in a very
Yeah.
casual setting, right? And so it's fine to have um, maybe the uh, OST swell when they're riding on a carriage. They're
Yeah,
not really
yeah,
saying
exactly.
anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
which those moments are good. But when you just have Hollow and Lawrence sort of talking to each other,
In a tavern. Yeah.
you don't really need this sort of orchestral chorus going on in the background, right? You can have a much more subdued
Yes, yes,
soundtrack,
yes.
Yeah.
which
Yes.
could be
Yeah,
an issue
and I
of
think like
the general
when
sound designer, but
yeah, and I think when obviously like when it is like hitting it correctly, it is very nice, it's very complimentary. And I think standalone wise, it's also just obviously very good music. Um, but yeah, that was just kind of like one of my basic like gripes where like sometimes it'll just like it's just like swelling too much like to the point where it's like, even if you weren't going to change the actual sort of makeup of this music, like do something else, like just mixing it down more would be also way better. Just like muffle it a little bit. Like it does not need to be as like, loud and sort of on the same volume of Hollow and Lawrence in this scene, you know? Um but yeah, I think other than that it's quite good. I don't
Mhm.
I don't really have any like, complaints, so to speak.
Yeah. I think again, if this series was first, it's very hard to mess up given this sort of source material, especially if you have the number of episodes, right? If this was like 11 episodes or 10 episodes, like the days of yore, yeah, okay, I can kind of see this being a little bit wonky. But if you have 24 episodes with a very, very, very significant chance for another season, with this sort of source material, it is very hard to mess it up because you just go straight out of like what is going on
Right.
here, and then you just need to work on audio visuals. And I'm glad that the previous this has the same like director, right? Duo. It has Takahashi and Sampe. Yeah. Um. So I'm glad this duo could really pull together their kind of the team that they needed, as well as help Passione to get this thing running. But yeah, it's if they had messed this one up, this would be one for the hate mail to come through.
Yeah, I think
So yeah.
the one like fear I have is
Uh-huh.
because they open this up with Hollow talking
The
to
kid.
Miori,
Yeah.
her daughter.
Yes. Yes.
My one fear is that they do one season of this and it caps off with like going back to that and them being like, haha, go fuck yourself. We're just gonna do like now one season of the of Wolf and Parchment
Yeah, yeah,
and go
yeah,
and
yeah,
fuck
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's my
That would
one.
be
That's my
very
one
I
unfortunate.
mean, they're
worry,
not
and I
gonna
hope
adapt
that.
all the way up to fucking Wolf Parchment. It's just not gonna happen. right? Like,
So they're
But
gonna
they
need to
should though.
do some. Yeah,
So
they should, but it's gonna. We'll see. It is very like interesting situations they put themselves in, just because it's been so many years and it's been so much material. I think it'll be kind of weird because it's also like, in one sense, we do want a lot of the material, but I think if the corporate heads push for too much too fast, and we just get like a whole bunch of adaptations that are like lower and lower in quality just because of the rate they're getting pushed out in, and like the stuff that they have to cover and the pace, then it's gonna be very unfortunate because it's not gonna be
man,
known as a good
What the
adaptation.
fuck else is Passione got going on? Okay.
Yeah, that is true.
What else are
But
they
yeah,
gonna do?
I do hope that it does turn out well, but we'll have to see. Again, it's a very interesting situation that they've put themselves in. So
Yeah, I mean, I think regardless is like it's kind of impossible to like drop the ball at this point. So like
yeah.
it'll just be my own personal disappointment at that point, but
Yeah.
we will see.
All right. Well, I guess again, it is a little bit. I guess yeah.
Oh,
We
also
still
the
do
OP
need
and
to.
EDs are very nice. The OP is
Yeah.
very strange. It's like a weird like blurry like painterly thing
Hmm.
that they got going on. I would recommend checking it out because it's very cool. Uh, and then the ED is a not really chibi, but almost like chibi, like cartoony, like storybook type ED.
Hmm.
Both have very nice music, so
All right.
very cute.
Uh, yes. Any final thoughts? Plus, I guess Mal rating there.
Yeah, I think, just in general, I think anyone should just check this out, right? There is literally like, unless somehow they just like royally fuck this up, as long as they cover enough, and as long as we either, get everything up to what was covered, if not
I
more,
mean,
in
even
the
if they do
original,
fuck it
then
up, what's
like,
there right now is enough. Because like Spice Wolf is a literal classic, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it is essentially um
I just don't know
the.
how they would fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
They just need to not, as long as they
they
don't
could
go
start
kind of
cutting
unless
out
they just like,
arcs.
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah, they could start
massively
anime
cutting
original
shit
endings.
out.
Do not do
overrated.
that.
Yeah,
Do not do anime
they could
original
they could
endings.
do a lot of shit. But
Yeah.
like for what's there right now, it's enough to sort of watch and see what is sort of the talk of the town for
Yeah. Hmm.
Spice Wolf, right? And Spice
Yeah.
Wolf is essentially the modern day like grandfather of pretty much every slow life series ever, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of just like the gold standard for the current like era of anime that we've been in.
Yeah.
Um, and it would it would be probably a good idea if you like anything even remotely similar to slow life series to watch Spice and Wolf, this new one at the very least,
Yeah.
because most people, as fucking cringe as it is, like one of the most common excuses I hear for fucking young people to not watch an older series is that it isn't shiny enough, right? Um, which is fucking annoying.
Mhm.
But it is a real grievance that people have. So now that this exists and it's basically just a so far pretty much shot for shot adaptation, right?
Mhm.
Of the original. Like, there's literally no reason not to watch it. So,
Yeah. I think if you like, again, there's not really a lot of people who have done, I guess, released like a really like full proper like almost like report or like analysis, meta analysis or anything like that of like anime of the last, I want to say, 20x years. But I would probably say like the if you Kino no Tabi and Spice and Wolf. These two are historical landmarks that, as Nier said, really help form 99% of all of these other sort of journey, kind of going through and kind of slow pace kind of stuff
yeah,
that we
they're
see today.
basically like the cultural pillars that the anime
Yeah, yeah.
industry sort of models
Everything
itself
like this,
after.
like the Majin no Tabi Tabi, Mushishi, Natsume Yujincho, like stuff like this. Like all these other Journey series. This is where it came from. Like these two really are pretty much where it came from. Yeah. So, uh, but yeah, what is your mal rating, Dark? What is the mal rating on this? Actually, I'm curious.
It's an 8.1.
Nice. Okay. So, Dark. I think Dark agrees with that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, and I think for mall rating, probably I don't know, I would probably rate it higher than what mall has here. I would probably give it like it has an 8.1. I would probably say 8.5 to 9.
okay.
Just because like I
Okay.
said, there are some like
Yeah,
there's a
yeah, yeah.
decent amount of like shots where you're like, that could use a lot of touching up, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I think it's probably the best looking thing that Pessione has put out as well.
Yeah.
So can't really complain too much considering like they're kind of punching above what they normally their like usual output is to begin
They
with,
got
like
more than
way
enough money
above.
for this series. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then. Well, thank you very much, Dark. I know this is a little bit of a bigger thing to cover. Again, Spice and Wolf Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf. 2024 remake done by Passione instead of again the combination first season, the older series that was done. I think when was that aired? 2008. Wow,
yeah.
2008. First season by Imagine, second season by Brainspace. So if you do like
Oh
Spice
yeah,
and
and
Wolf,
just to
if you
cover
do
like the
like
reason why we didn't do go over like director and shit is because it's the same
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
director.
all it's
same.
pretty
And
much
then
all the same.
they gathered like some of these kind of smaller, more niche staff from like other places, from newer places too, because obviously, um, and I think us quite a bit of the like the chief animation directors and stuff like that from newer places, because obviously with the passage of time, people go off in their separate ways. But the main director and story writer, Kagashi and Sanpei, I believe the duo, those two are in charge of this remake as well. So yeah, if you do like Spice and Wolf, if you do like slower pace, kind of like traveling series, this is a and if you haven't
If you
seen
haven't
Spice and
seen
Wolf
it,
yet,
now
yeah,
is the time.
yeah, exactly. So now is the time.